Imagine a world where the Earth is born from the courage of a tiny water beetle and shaped by the wings of a giant buzzard. This is the Cherokee creation story. A vision where every creature, great and small, plays a vital role in the making of our world. How do we reconcile this sacred narrative with the scientific story of cosmic explosions and swirling dust? Let's find out. In the Cherokee myth, the world began as endless water, with the sky realm above growing crowded. Dionysi, the water beetle, dove into the depths, returning with a speck of mud that grew into land. The great buzzard then shaped mountains and valleys with its wings, transforming the soft earth into a home for life. Creation here is an act of courage and intention, not random chance. Science tells a different story. Earth formed from cosmic dust, mountains rose from tectonic shifts, and life emerged from chemical reactions. The Cherokee myth offers meaning and spirit. Science offers evidence and logic. Are these stories at odds, or do they reveal different truths about our origins? Before land, there was only water and the sky realm above, home to spirit beings longing for space. Their needs sparked creation, not from chaos but from community and intention. In this worldview, the Earth is a response to the desires of conscious beings, not a random accident. When the strongest failed, Dionysi the water beetle bravely dove into the unknown, retrieving the mud that became our world. This act shows that even the smallest can shape destiny, and that creation is a sacred quest, not mere happenstance. The Cherokee story reminds us, the world is a treasure won through courage and hope. After what seemed like an eternity in the silent, crushing depths, Dionysi finally felt something different. Its tiny legs brushed against a soft, yielding substance at the very bottom of the great ocean. It was mud, the primeval ooze that lay hidden beneath the endless water. This was the foundation it had been seeking, the raw material from which a new world could be fashioned. With great care, the little water beetle gathered a small bit of this sacred mud, securing it, and then began its long, arduous journey back toward the surface. The ascent was just as challenging as the descent, a slow and steady climb from the darkest abyss back toward the distant promise of light, carrying the very seed of a new world with it. When Dionysi finally breached the surface and emerged into the air, it was greeted with great celebration by the spirit beings who had been anxiously waiting. The tiny speck of mud it carried was more precious than any jewel, for it held the potential for a new home. As soon as the mud was brought out of the water, a great magic began to unfold. It started to grow, spreading outward from the center in all directions. The small piece of earth expanded across the surface of the ocean, growing larger and larger, forming a great floating island. This was the birth of the earth, an act of magical creation that transformed a single speck of mud from the depths into the land that would one day support all life. The story tells that this newly formed land was tethered to the sky realm at each of the 4 cardinal directions with great cords. These cords held the new earth in place, preventing it from being tossed about by the currents of the great ocean below. This detail adds another layer of cosmic order to the creation, linking the new world directly to the old one. The Earth was not a separate, isolated entity, but an extension of the sky realm, anchored and secured by the creators. This imagery really reinforces the idea of a connected cosmos, where the celestial and terrestrial worlds are inextricably bound together, each supporting the other in a grand, harmonious structure. This process of creation, from a single speck of mud, is a powerful symbol of genesis and growth. It suggests that all great things have small beginnings, and that the potential for a whole world can be contained within the most minuscule particle. It presents a world that is fundamentally organic, growing and spreading like a living organism, rather than being violently pieced together from cosmic debris. The Earth's origin in this tale is not one of fire and collision but of water, magic and gentle expansion. It imbues the land with an inherent sacredness, as it originated from a substance retrieved by a heroic act and was shaped by divine intention, making it a living, growing entity from its very first moment. Though the Earth now existed as a vast floating island, it was not yet ready to be inhabited. The land was still soft, wet, and completely flat, like a freshly smoothed patch of clay. It lacked the texture and features necessary for life to take root and flourish. It needed to be prepared, to be given the contours and forms that would make it a dynamic and habitable world. The spirit beings in the sky realm knew that another act of creation was required. They looked for another being with the power and grace to shape the soft new land. This time, the call was answered by the great buzzard, a magnificent and powerful spirit bird whose wingspan could honestly cover entire regions. The great buzzard was sent down from Galunlati with the sacred task of flying over the new earth to make it firm and dry. As this colossal bird began its flight, soaring low over the damp, formless plains, its immense wings beat a slow and powerful rhythm against the air. With every mighty downstroke, the force of its wings pushed against the soft ground below, causing the earth to rise up and form great mountains. The peaks and ridges that we see today are, according to this story, the physical memory of those powerful wing beats. Where the buzzard's wings pushed down with force, the highest mountains were formed, their rugged shapes a testament to the bird's immense strength. Conversely, on its upstrokes, when the great buzzard gracefully lifted its wings, the land remained lower, creating the gentle slopes of hills and the wide expanses of valleys. The entire topography of the world was thus sculpted by this single majestic flight. The landscape became a rhythmic pattern of high and low, a direct physical manifestation of the sacred bird's dance in the sky. This act was not one of violence or destruction, but of artistry. The great buzzard was a divine sculptor, using its own body and the power of its flight to carve a beautiful and varied world. The Earth's surface became a masterpiece of divine craftsmanship. This part of the myth offers a poetic and deeply ecological explanation for the world's geography. It connects the physical features of the land directly to the actions of a living spiritual being. Mountains are not just inert piles of rock pushed up by blind geological forces. They are the result of a purposeful and graceful act of creation. Valleys are not simply low-lying areas, they are the spaces left by the gentle lift of a divine wing. This perspective encourages a view of nature as a sacred text, where every mountain and valley tells a part of the creation story, forever linking the physical world to the spiritual beings who shaped it with such care and artistry. With the mountains raised and the valleys carved, the earth was nearly complete, but it was still a world of twilight, shrouded in a perpetual dusk. To bring true life, there needed to be light and heat. The spirit beings took the sun and, after much deliberation about its placement, they hung it in the sky to travel from east to west, creating the cycle of day and night. At first they placed it too low, and the world became scorched, and a prized crawfish was cooked in its shell. They raised it again and again, 7 times in total, until it was at the perfect height to provide warmth and light without burning the new earth, establishing a rhythm that would govern life forever. Once the sun was in its proper place and the land was firm, the plants and animals that had been waiting in the sky realm were finally able to descend and populate the new world. They spread out across the mountains and valleys, finding niches in the diverse landscape that the great buzzard had created. However, they were told to stay awake for 7 nights to commemorate the creation. Most could not, and as a punishment, they were cursed to be prey for the few, like the owl and the panther, who managed to stay awake. This detail introduces the concepts of hierarchy and the natural order of predator and prey, not as a random struggle for survival, but as a consequence of spiritual discipline and endurance. Finally, the first man and woman were created. In the Cherokee story, they were formed from the earth itself, solidifying the deep connection between humanity and the land. The first man was struck by a fish, and every place his hand touched his partner, a child was born, and the earth began to be filled with people. This origin story for humanity is deeply rooted in the natural and fertile world, presenting humans not as masters of the earth but as children of it, born from its very substance and intrinsically linked to its rhythms and its fate. Our existence is portrayed as part of the final, beautiful ordering of a world born from both chaos and divine will. This completed world, as envisioned by the Cherokee, is a tapestry of interconnected meanings. Every element has its place and its story. The sun's path, the predator-prey relationship, and human life are all part of a deliberate and sacred order. The natural world is not a collection of random resources but a community of beings, each with a role to play in a grand cosmic drama. This narrative provides a framework for living in balance and respect with the environment, as every feature of the landscape and every living creature is a direct link to the sacred acts of creation, a constant reminder of the world's spiritual origins. Now, we must leave the quiet, watery abyss of the Cherokee myth and journey back to a moment of unimaginable violence and energy. The scientific story of our origins does not begin with the needs of a celestial community, but with the laws of physics operating on a scale that defies human intuition. It starts approximately 13.8 billion years ago. At this point, everything that constitutes our universe, all matter, all energy, all space, and even time itself, was compressed into a region of infinite density and temperature, a singularity. This state is beyond our capacity to fully describe, a point where our known laws of physics break down. There was no before this moment, as time itself began with this event. This singularity did not exist within a pre-existing void. It was the void. It was everything. Then in a fraction of a second, it began to expand. This event, known as the Big Bang, was not an explosion in space like a bomb going off. It was the expansion of space itself, everywhere at once. In the first picoseconds of existence, the universe inflated at a speed faster than light, smoothing out into a near-perfect uniformity. As it expanded, it cooled, allowing fundamental particles like quarks and electrons to condense from the seething maelstrom of pure energy. This is a creation story told not in poetic verses, but in the language of quantum mechanics and general relativity, a narrative of cosmic genesis. Within the first few minutes, the universe had cooled enough for protons and neutrons to fuse together, forming the nuclei of the simplest elements: hydrogen, helium, and a tiny amount of lithium. For hundreds of thousands of years, the cosmos remained an opaque, superheated plasma, a fog of charged particles and light. Only when the universe cooled further could electrons be captured by atomic nuclei, forming the first stable atoms. This event, known as recombination, made the universe transparent for the first time. The light from that moment, freed to travel across space, can still be detected today as the cosmic microwave background radiation, the faint ancient echo of creation's first roar. This scientific account presents a universe that is fundamentally impersonal and undirected. There is no conscious will, no divine plan guiding the expansion or the formation of the first elements. Creation unfolds according to a set of physical laws that are woven into the very fabric of space-time. The universe is not born from the desire for a new home but from the inexorable progression of physical processes. It is a story of magnificent, awe-inspiring scale, but one that replaces the intentionality of myth with the cold, hard logic of causality. The cosmos is not a gift from the spirits, it is the outcome of a chain reaction that began with a singular, inexplicable event nearly 14 billion years ago. Following the Big Bang, the universe continued its journey of expansion and evolution. The simple elements forged in the initial moments began to clump together under the influence of gravity, forming vast clouds of gas. Within these cosmic nurseries, the first stars ignited, massive and brilliant furnaces that began the process of cosmic alchemy. Inside their fiery cores, hydrogen and helium were fused into heavier elements like carbon, oxygen, and iron, the very building blocks of our world and ourselves. When these first-generation stars reached the end of their lives, they exploded in spectacular supernovae, scattering these newly forged elements across the cosmos like a farmer sowing seeds in a field, enriching the interstellar medium for future generations of stars and planets. Our own solar system began to form from one such enriched cloud of gas and dust about 4.6 billion years ago. A nearby supernova or some other cosmic disturbance likely caused this nebula to collapse under its own gravity. As it collapsed, it began to spin, flattening into a rotating disk known as a protoplanetary disk. At the center of this spinning disk, the vast majority of the material accumulated, growing hotter and denser until nuclear fusion ignited, and our sun was born. The remaining dust and gas in the swirling disk around the young star was the raw material from which the planets, including our Earth, would be constructed. This was not a gentle process of magical growth but a chaotic and violent period of planetary formation. In this swirling disk, tiny dust grains began to stick together through electrostatic forces like dust bunnies forming under a bed. These clumps grew into pebbles, then boulders, and eventually into planetesimals, rocky bodies hundreds of kilometers across. For millions of years, these planetesimals orbited the young sun in a cosmic demolition derby, constantly colliding and merging. This process, known as accretion, gradually built up larger and larger bodies. Our Earth was one of the victors in this chaotic battle, a growing protoplanet that swept up material in its orbital path. Its formation was a story of relentless, violent collisions, culminating in a molten sphere of rock and metal, a far cry from a soft, muddy island. The early Earth was a hellish world, completely inhospitable to life as we know it. Its surface was a glowing ocean of magma, kept molten by the heat of its formation and a continuous bombardment by asteroids and comets left over from the solar system's construction. This period, known as the Hadean Eon, was characterized by extreme volcanism and a toxic atmosphere devoid of oxygen. There was no water beetle to bring land from the deep. Instead, the very land we stand on had to slowly cool and solidify from a sea of fire. The planet's birth was not a gentle act of creation, but a brutal process of gravitational assembly in the cosmic forge of the early solar system. Section 3. The Crucible of Life, from Molecules to Organisms. For the first few 100 million years of its existence, the Earth was, well, a sterile planet, a ball of hot rock orbiting the sun. The water that now covers its surface was likely delivered by icy comets and asteroids during the late heavy bombardment, or it may have outgassed from the planet's interior as it cooled. This water eventually condensed to form the first oceans, but these were not the life-filled seas we know today. They were more like a chemical soup, a primordial soup rich in simple, organic molecules. These molecules, the basic building blocks of life, could have been synthesized by the energy from lightning strikes, volcanic vents on the ocean floor, or even delivered to Earth from space. The next step in the scientific creation story is perhaps the most mysterious and profound, the origin of life itself, a process known as abiogenesis. Somehow, within this chemical crucible of the early oceans, a remarkable transition occurred. Simple, non-living organic molecules began to organize into more complex structures. They formed polymers like proteins and nucleic acids. Critically, one of these molecules, likely RNA, developed the ability to make copies of itself. This was the dawn of replication, the fundamental characteristic of life. These self-replicating molecules were then enclosed within simple membranes, forming the first primitive cells, or protocells, separating their internal chemistry from the outside world. Once these first simple, single-celled organisms appeared, roughly 4 billion years ago, a new creative force took over, evolution by natural selection. In the competition for resources, any cells with random variations that gave them a slight advantage, better energy capture, more efficient replication, or greater resilience, were more likely to survive and pass on those traits to their offspring. Over countless generations, this slow, iterative process drove the diversification of life. For billions of years, life on Earth consisted solely of simple microscopic organisms like bacteria and archaea. They gradually transformed the planet, most notably by producing oxygen as a byproduct of photosynthesis, which dramatically changed the atmosphere and paved the way for more complex life forms. This is a story of emergence and gradual complexification, not one of special creation. Humans do not appear fully formed from the Earth. They are a very recent twig on an immense and ancient tree of life. Through the same process of evolution, multi-celled organisms eventually appeared, leading to an explosion of diversity in the oceans and, eventually, the colonization of the land. From the first fish that crawled onto the shore to the age of dinosaurs and the rise of mammals, the history of life is an unbroken chain of descent with modification, stretching back to a single common ancestor in Earth's ancient seas. We are not separate from nature, we are one of its countless and most recent expressions. Section 4. The Unseen Sculptor Gravity's Relentless Hand. In the scientific narrative of Earth's formation, the role of the great buzzard, the divine sculptor, is played by a far more fundamental and pervasive force: gravity. It is gravity that was the unseen architect of our world, its influence acting relentlessly over billions of years. After the Earth cooled from a molten sphere into a solid body, its surface was not static. The planet's interior remained hot and dynamic, creating powerful convection currents in the mantle, the thick layer between the crust and the core. These slow-moving currents exert a tremendous force on the rigid lithosphere, the outer shell of the Earth, which is broken into a series of massive tectonic plates. These plates are in constant, slow-motion motion, floating on the semi-fluid mantle beneath them. Where these plates collide, the forces are immense. One plate can be forced to dive beneath another in a process called subduction, or they can crumple and buckle like the hood of a car in a head-on collision. It is this process, the collision of continental plates, that raises the great mountain ranges of our world. The Himalayas, for example, began to form about 50 million years ago when the Indian plate slammed into the Eurasian plate. Their towering, jagged peaks are not the memory of a buzzard's wing beat, but the ongoing result of a geological collision that continues to push them higher even today. Conversely, where plates pull apart, or rift, great valleys are formed. The East African Rift Valley is a prime example of this process, a place where the continental crust is being stretched and thinned, eventually to be replaced by a new ocean basin. Volcanoes, earthquakes, and the very shape of the continents are all governed by this grand, slow dance of plate tectonics. The world's geography is not a finished masterpiece sculpted at the dawn of time. It is a dynamic and ever-changing system. Mountains are actively being built up by tectonic forces, while simultaneously being worn down by the patient forces of wind and water erosion in a cycle that has operated for billions of years. This scientific explanation for our planet's topography is one of immense impersonal power. The forces that shape our world are blind and mechanical, operating according to the predictable laws of physics and geology. There is a certain majesty to this vision. The idea of entire continents drifting across the globe, of mountain ranges being thrust miles into the sky by the slow, inexorable pressure of colliding plates. However, it is a majesty devoid of the intention and artistry found in the myth. The mountains are a byproduct of heat and pressure, not the creation of a divine being. The unseen sculptor of science, gravity, is powerful and creative, but it is also utterly indifferent. Section 5. A story written in starlight, the evidence for an ancient cosmos. The scientific creation story is not presented as a matter of faith or ancient tradition. It is presented as a conclusion based on a vast and interlocking web of physical evidence. Scientists read the history of the universe not from a sacred text, but from the book of nature itself. One of the most powerful pieces of evidence for the Big Bang comes from the light of distant galaxies. In the 1920s, astronomer Edwin Hubble observed that virtually all galaxies are moving away from us, and the farther away they are, the faster they are receding. This cosmic expansion is precisely what you would expect to see if the entire universe began from a single point and has been expanding ever since. The age of the Earth and the solar system is not a guess. It is calculated through the precise measurement of radioactive decay. Certain elements, like uranium, decay into other elements, like lead, at a known constant rate. By measuring the ratio of these elements in the oldest rocks on Earth and in meteorites, which are pristine remnants from the solar system's formation, scientists can calculate their age with remarkable accuracy. These radiometric dating methods consistently place the age of the Earth at about 4.54 billion years old, providing a timescale vast enough for the slow processes of planetary formation and evolution to unfold. The story is written in the very atoms of the rocks beneath our feet. Further evidence comes from the stars themselves. By analyzing the light from stars, we can determine their composition, temperature, and age. This field of stellar spectroscopy confirms that the universe is overwhelmingly composed of hydrogen and helium, just as the Big Bang theory predicts. It also shows us the ongoing process of nucleosynthesis, the creation of heavier elements inside stars. We can literally see the cosmic alchemy at work across the cosmos. Furthermore, the fossil record provides a stunning timeline of the evolution of life on Earth, showing the gradual transition from simple organisms to the complex ecosystems we see today, a story preserved in layers of sedimentary rock. This reliance on verifiable, repeatable observation is the hallmark of the scientific method. Every claim, from the expansion of the universe to the movement of continents to the evolution of species, is supported by multiple independent lines of evidence. It is a story that is constantly being refined and tested as new data becomes available. For its proponents, this is its greatest strength. It is not a static, unchanging dogma, but a dynamic and self-correcting quest for a deeper understanding of the physical reality we inhabit. It offers a narrative of our origins that is not only grand and awe-inspiring, but is also, to the best of our ability to determine, demonstrably true. Let us now step back from the specific details of beetles and bangs, of buzzards and bosons, and ask a more fundamental question. What is the purpose of a creation story? Is it merely to provide a factual, chronological account of events? Or does it serve a deeper human need? The Cherokee story, like all mythologies, is not primarily concerned with providing a scientific treatise on geology or cosmology. Its purpose is to weave a tapestry of meaning, to explain our place in the cosmos, to establish our relationship with the world around us, and to provide a moral and ethical framework for our lives. It is a story designed to be lived, not just to be known. It answers the question, why? Just as much as it answers the question, how? The power of the water beetle, Dionysi, lies not in its biological plausibility, but in its symbolic weight. It teaches that courage and determination can come from the most humble of sources, that even the smallest among us can be an agent of profound change. The great buzzard's flight is not a lesson in aerodynamics, but a poetic illustration of balance and artistry, shaping a world of beautiful diversity. These stories imbue the natural world with personality and purpose. A mountain is not just a pile of rock, it is a sacred monument. The earth is not an indifferent sphere, it is a living entity, a gift secured through heroic effort. This worldview fosters a deep sense of reciprocity and respect for nature, a feeling of being part of a larger sacred family. In stark contrast, the scientific narrative, for all its explanatory power, is fundamentally a story of mechanism. It tells us how the universe works with breathtaking precision, but it remains silent on the question of why. It describes a universe governed by impersonal, unthinking laws. Gravity pulls, atoms fuse, and species evolve not because of any grand purpose or divine will, but simply because the conditions are right for those processes to occur. Science provides a detailed blueprint of the house, but it cannot tell us if anyone is home. For many, this is a profoundly unsettling thought. It can leave one feeling like a cosmic orphan, an accidental byproduct of a random and meaningless sequence of physical events. This is the emotional core of the debate. Do we gravitate toward the story that gives us a sense of belonging and purpose, even if it lacks empirical evidence? Or do we embrace the story that is demonstrably true, even if it leaves us feeling cold and alone in a vast, indifferent cosmos? The choice is not simply between two different sets of facts. It is a choice between two different ways of experiencing reality. One path offers a world rich with soul, where our lives are part of a grand, meaningful drama. The other offers a world of verifiable truth, where our significance is something we must create for ourselves in the face of a silent universe. The Cherokee creation myth presents a world that is saturated with intention. Every aspect of its formation, from the initial dive of the water beetle to the final placement of the sun, is a result of conscious decision-making by spirit beings. This is a universe with a soul, a cosmos where consciousness is not a late-coming accident but the primary force behind creation itself. The earth was made for a purpose, to provide a home for the overflowing life from the sky realm. The mountains and valleys were sculpted with artistic intent. The rules governing life and death, predator and prey, were established as consequences of spiritual actions. This worldview places humanity within a living, responsive, and sacred order. This sense of an intentional universe has a profound psychological and emotional impact. It fosters a feeling of being connected to something larger than oneself, of living within a story that has inherent meaning. The natural world ceases to be a mere collection of resources to be exploited and instead becomes a community of fellow beings, a family of spirits. A river is not just a source of water, it is a living entity with a spirit. A forest is not just a collection of timber, it is a sacred grove. This perspective encourages a relationship with the environment built on respect, gratitude, and a sense of custodial responsibility. We are not owners of the earth, we are its youngest children, tasked with maintaining the balance that our creators established. This infusion of meaning stands in direct opposition to the perceived soullessness of the scientific worldview. In the scientific story, the universe has no inherent intent. The Big Bang was not planned. The formation of Earth was a gravitational inevitability. The evolution of life was driven by the blind, opportunistic process of natural selection. There is no underlying purpose, no grand narrative written into the fabric of space-time. The universe simply is. It is a machine of unimaginable complexity and scale, but a machine nonetheless. Any meaning or purpose we find in it is a projection of our own human minds, a story we tell ourselves to make sense of the silence. For some, this lack of inherent purpose is liberating, freeing humanity to define its own values and destiny. But for many others, it is a source of deep existential anxiety. If the universe is without a soul, if our existence is a mere cosmic accident, then what is the ultimate basis for morality, for love, for beauty? The mythological worldview provides ready-made answers to these questions, grounding them in the very structure of creation. The scientific worldview, by its very nature, cannot. It can describe the what and the how of existence with stunning accuracy, but it must remain forever mute on the why, leaving a void that human spirituality has always sought to fill. It is a common criticism that the scientific account of creation is cold, mechanical, and devoid of the poetry and soul found in mythology. But is this necessarily true? For those who have immersed themselves in the scientific narrative, there is a different kind of beauty to be found, a profound and awe-inspiring elegance that is just as powerful as any myth. It is the beauty of understanding, the poetry of discovering the deep and universal laws that govern everything from the motion of galaxies to the chemistry of life. This is not the beauty of a story made for us, but the beauty of a reality we are privileged to uncover. Consider the sheer, mind-boggling scale of the scientific story. The idea that our universe sprang from a point smaller than an atom and has been expanding for 13.8 billion years is a concept more wondrous than many myths. Think of the cosmic alchemy happening inside distant stars, forging the very carbon in our bodies and the iron in our blood, and then scattering those elements across space in supernova explosions. This means that we are, in a very literal sense, made of stardust. We are the children of exploding stars, the universe made conscious. Is this not a poetic and deeply moving thought, a profound connection to the cosmos written in the language of astrophysics? There is also a sublime elegance in the simplicity and universality of physical laws. The same force of gravity that holds galaxies together in great cosmic webs is the force that keeps our feet planted firmly on the ground. The same electromagnetic principles that govern starlight are what allow the neurons in our brain to fire, enabling us to think and feel and wonder. This underlying unity, the realization that the entire universe operates on a single coherent set of rules, can evoke a feeling of reverence akin to a religious experience. It is the beauty of a hidden order, a cosmic symphony playing out according to the laws of physics, that we are slowly learning to hear. This is not a cold or soulless vision of the world. It is one filled with a different kind of magic, the magic of reality itself. It may not offer the comfort of a universe designed with us in mind, but it offers something else, the thrill of discovery and the profound humility that comes from understanding our true place in the cosmos. It reveals a universe that is far grander, more ancient, and more complex than our ancestors could have ever imagined. Finding the poetry in physics does not require abandoning a sense of wonder, it requires redirecting it from the stories we tell ourselves to the incredible story the universe is telling us through the language of evidence and observation. At the heart of both the Cherokee myth and the scientific narrative is the question of human significance. Where do we, as a species, fit into the grand scheme of things? The Cherokee creation story gives us a clear and comforting answer. Humanity is placed deliberately into a world prepared for us. We are created from the earth, establishing an immediate and unbreakable bond with the land. We are part of a sacred order, given a specific role and a set of responsibilities within a community of other than human beings. In this worldview, our significance is not in question. It is a foundational premise of our existence. We belong here because this place was made for us, and we for it. This sense of belonging is a powerful psychological anchor. It provides a stable identity, a sense of place that transcends individual lives. The world is not an alien environment to be conquered, but a home to be cared for. This perspective shapes culture, morality, and individual behavior. If the mountains and rivers possess spirit and memory, one thinks twice before scarring them for profit. If animals are our elder siblings in creation, one approaches them with respect rather than mere utility. The mythological framework provides an answer to the fundamental human longing for home, for a place where we are not strangers but integral members of a much larger sacred family. The scientific narrative, however, offers a much more humbling and, for some, unsettling answer to the question of our place. In this story, we are not the protagonists. We are a cosmic accident, the result of a long and contingent chain of physical and biological events. The universe is not our home in the sense that it was prepared for us. It is simply the physical setting in which we happen to evolve. The Earth is not our mother in a literal sense. It is a rare and fragile planetary platform that happens to have the right conditions to support our particular form of life. Our existence is not a necessity but a remarkable stroke of cosmic luck. This realization can be profoundly disorienting. If we are not the center of the universe, if our existence is not part of a divine plan, then what is our significance? Science tells us that we are a single, recent twig on a vast and branching tree of life, on a tiny planet orbiting an average star in one of billions of galaxies. From a cosmic perspective, we are infinitesimally small and fleeting. This can lead to a sense of cosmic insignificance, a feeling of being lost in an immense and impersonal void. Our sense of belonging is not given to us by the cosmos. It is something we must forge for ourselves with each other on this lonely outpost in the great cosmic darkness. We arrive at a crucial junction in our debate. We have explored a story born of spirit and a story born of starlight. One is filled with meaning, purpose, and a deep sense of belonging. The other is filled with evidence, logic, and a breathtaking, impersonal grandeur. So, must we choose? Are these two worldviews mutually exclusive, locked in a zero-sum game where the victory of one necessitates the annihilation of the other? Or is it possible that they represent two different yet equally valid ways of apprehending reality? Could it be that truth itself is not a monolithic concept but a plural and multifaceted one? Perhaps the conflict arises from a fundamental category error, asking a myth to act as a scientific textbook and asking science to provide spiritual fulfillment. The Cherokee creation story was never intended to be a literal geological account. It is a spiritual and psychological truth, a map of meaning for the human soul. It explains our relationship to the world, not the chemical composition of its rocks. To dismiss it as unscientific is to miss its entire point, like criticizing a love poem for its inaccurate portrayal of cardiovascular anatomy. Its truth is measured not in empirical data, but in its ability to foster wisdom, community, and a sustainable relationship with the earth. Conversely, science's strength lies in its resolute focus on the physical, the measurable, the verifiable. It provides a powerful and reliable method for understanding the material world, for curing diseases, and for reaching for the stars. But its methodology inherently limits its scope. Science cannot prove or disprove the existence of purpose, the value of compassion, or the meaning of a human life. These are questions that lie outside its domain. When science is elevated to the status of a complete worldview, a scientism that dismisses all other ways of knowing, it oversteps its bounds and creates a spiritual vacuum that it is unequipped to fill. Could it be then that we need both? Perhaps a full human existence requires a bifocal vision, the ability to look at the world through both the lens of science and the lens of myth. We need the scientific lens to understand the physical reality we inhabit, to solve practical problems, and to appreciate the incredible evidence-based story of our cosmic origins. But we may also need the mythological lens to navigate our inner worlds, to find our place in a community, to feel at home in the universe, and to answer the timeless questions of meaning and purpose that science cannot address. The ultimate question may not be which story is true, but whether we have the wisdom to recognize that different kinds of truth can, and perhaps must, coexist. Welcome to the debate zone. Here, the elegant poetry of myth collides head-on with the rigorous logic of science. This is not a gentle dialogue, it is a fundamental clash of worldviews, a battle for the very nature of truth itself. On one side of the battlefield stands science, armored in data and wielding the sharp sword of empirical evidence. It demands proof. It asks for repeatable experiments, for fossil records, for cosmic background radiation. Its strength lies in its objectivity, its ability to build a model of reality that is consistent, predictive, and verifiable by anyone with the right tools and training. It offers a truth that is universal, independent of culture or personal feeling. A story written in the impartial language of mathematics and observation. On the other side stands mythology, defended not by data, but by the profound power of human experience. The Cherokee creation story does not need external proof because its truth is felt internally. It is validated every time a person looks at a mountain and feels a sense of awe and connection, not to tectonic plates but to a sacred shaping power. Its evidence is the cultural cohesion it fosters, the moral guidance it provides, and the deep sense of belonging it instills in its believers. This is a truth that is personal, communal, and deeply emotional. It is a story that breathes life into the world, transforming a landscape of inert matter into a living spiritual home. It speaks not to the rational mind, but to the yearning heart. The core of the conflict lies in their differing criteria for what constitutes a valid claim. For a scientist, a story without evidence is just a story, a fiction that may be beautiful, but is ultimately untrue. The tale of the water beetle is dismissed, not because it is less poetic than the Big Bang, but because there is simply no physical evidence to support it. The laws of physics and geology offer a comprehensive and evidence-based explanation that leaves no room for a divine buzzard. In this arena, belief without evidence is seen as wishful thinking at best and a dangerous delusion at worst. The scientific worldview demands that we align our beliefs with the observable facts of reality, no matter how uncomfortable those facts may be. For the keeper of myth, however, This demand for physical evidence misses the point entirely. To ask for the fossilized remains of the great buzzard is to commit a profound category error. The truth of the myth is not a scientific truth, it is a spiritual one. Its purpose is not to explain the mechanics of mountain formation, but to reveal our proper relationship with the mountains. The experience of connection, of living in a meaningful world, is its own form of evidence. From this perspective, a purely scientific worldview that reduces the world to a collection of soulless mechanisms is impoverished and incomplete. It offers a technically accurate description that is spiritually bankrupt, a truth that starves the human soul. Science, for all its incredible power, has clearly defined boundaries. Its method is designed to investigate the physical, material universe. It can tell you the chemical composition of a tear, but it cannot explain the feeling of sorrow or joy that produced it. It can describe the neurological processes that occur in a brain during a moment of love, but it cannot capture the experience of love itself. The scientific method is a powerful tool, but it is just that, a tool. And like any tool, it is only suited for certain jobs. It is fundamentally unequipped to answer questions of meaning, morality, purpose, or ultimate value. These are questions that lie outside the realm of empirical measurement. This is where mythology finds its essential and enduring role. It begins where science ends. The Cherokee story is not concerned with the how of creation in a mechanical sense. It is a profound exploration of the why. It posits that the world exists because of a need for life to flourish. It establishes a moral order where virtues like courage, the water beetle, and artistry, the great buzzard, are woven into the fabric of creation. It provides a framework for ethics, suggesting that our relationship with the natural world should be one of respect and reciprocity. These are not scientific statements, nor are they meant to be. They are answers to the deepest human questions, the ones that keep us awake in the dark. The weakness of a purely scientific worldview or scientism is its tendency to dismiss these non-empirical questions as meaningless. A strict materialist might argue that since purpose cannot be measured, it must not exist. In this view, the universe is what it is, and any search for deeper meaning is a futile exercise in self-deception. This perspective, while logically consistent within its own framework, can lead to a sterile and impoverished human experience. It risks creating a world where only the quantifiable has value, where poetry is reduced to syntax, love to chemistry, and wonder to a temporary gap in our knowledge. It leaves no room for the sacred, the mysterious, or the transcendent. Mythology's strength, then, is its ability to provide a language for these essential, non-material aspects of reality. It gives us a way to talk about our place in the cosmos, our responsibilities to each other and to the earth, and the ultimate meaning of our fleeting lives. It offers a truth that is not about factual accuracy, but about wisdom. While science gives us the power to build a civilization, mythology provides the wisdom to guide it. It reminds us that a life without meaning, without a sense of purpose and connection, is a hollow existence, no matter how technologically advanced or scientifically literate it may be. A world without myth is a world without a soul. However, we must also acknowledge the potential dangers lurking within mythology. When a myth is taken as literal, inerrant fact, it can transform from a source of wisdom into a rigid dogma. When a story meant to illuminate the soul is used as a weapon to silence inquiry and reject evidence, it becomes a prison for the mind. History is filled with examples of mythological or religious truths being used to justify oppression, to resist scientific progress, and to persecute those who dare to ask questions. A belief system that demands absolute faith and rejects all conflicting evidence can become a powerful tool for control, stifling critical thinking and fostering a dangerous us versus them mentality. The strength of science is its built-in mechanism for self-correction. The scientific method is a process of constant questioning, testing, and revision. No idea, no matter how revered, is safe from scrutiny. If new evidence emerges that contradicts a long-held theory, that theory must be changed or discarded. This commitment to skepticism and evidence is what allows science to progress, to build upon its successes and learn from its mistakes. It's honestly a system designed to overcome human bias and our natural tendency to cling to comforting beliefs. It is a humble process, always acknowledging that our current understanding is incomplete and subject to future refinement. The weakness of myth, when it hardens into dogma, is its resistance to change. Because its authority is based on tradition or divine revelation, it cannot easily adapt to new knowledge. A literal interpretation of the Cherokee myth would require a rejection of virtually all of modern geology, astronomy, and biology. To maintain such a belief in the face of overwhelming contradictory evidence requires a deliberate and sustained act of cognitive dissonance. This can lead to an intellectual isolationism, a retreat from the shared reality that science has so painstakingly uncovered, and a distrust of any knowledge that comes from outside the belief system. The story ceases to be a guide and becomes a barrier. Therefore, the debate is not just about science versus myth, but about open versus closed systems of thought. A healthy mythology can be fluid and metaphorical, evolving its meaning over time while still providing spiritual nourishment. A healthy scientific mindset embraces uncertainty and the thrill of the unknown. The danger arises when either side becomes dogmatic. A dogmatic scientist who dismisses all spiritual questions as nonsense is as closed-minded as a religious fundamentalist who believes the earth is only 6,000 years old. The true challenge is to hold our stories, whether scientific or mythic, with a blend of conviction and humility, recognizing their power while remaining open to new truths. We have reached the final standoff in our debate. The two stories stand before you, each offering a complete and compelling vision of the world. One story tells of a universe born from an explosion of space and time, of a planet forged in fire and collision, and of life emerging through the blind, relentless process of evolution. It is a story of immense scale and impersonal grandeur, supported by a mountain of physical evidence. It places you as a child of stardust, a conscious part of a vast and ancient cosmos, but an accidental one. Your significance not given but created by you. It demands your reason, your skepticism, and your courage to face a universe that was not made for you. The other story tells of a world born from the courage of a tiny beetle, shaped by the wings of a great buzzard, and ordered by the wisdom of spirits. It is a story of intention, purpose, and intimacy. It places you as a child of the earth, a welcome member of a sacred community, with a clear role and a deep sense of belonging. Its evidence is not found in rocks or starlight, but in the chambers of the human heart and the bonds of a living culture. It is a story that has been passed down through generations, a truth that has helped people live meaningful and balanced lives for centuries. It asks for your faith, your reverence, and your willingness to see the world as a living spiritual being. There is no easy compromise here. You cannot simply blend the two like mixing paints. A universe cannot be both the result of a random physical process and the deliberate act of a divine spirit at the same time and in the same way. At some point, you must decide where you stand. Do you place your ultimate trust in the empirical evidence gathered by the scientific method? Do you believe that the only reliable truths are those that can be tested and verified? Or do you believe that there is a deeper, more meaningful truth that can only be accessed through intuition, tradition, and spiritual experience? This is the fundamental choice before you. So, where do you plant your flag? In the cold, hard ground of scientific fact, or in the fertile soil of mythic meaning? Do you choose the story that explains the world, or the story that explains your place within it? Are you a cosmic accident, or a spiritual creation? This is not merely an intellectual exercise. The story you choose as your ultimate truth will shape how you see the world, how you treat others, and how you live your life. The two paths diverge from here. One leads to a universe of magnificent impersonal machinery, the other to a cosmos imbued with soul. Which path will you walk? We stand at the end of our journey, having traveled from a primordial ocean of myth to the explosive birth of a scientific cosmos. We have weighed the courage of a tiny water beetle against the gravitational pull of a collapsing nebula. We have contrasted the artistic flight of a great buzzard with the slow, grinding collision of tectonic plates. Through it all, one truth remains undeniably clear. We are a species obsessed with our own origins. This quest to understand where we come from is one of the most fundamental and enduring aspects of the human condition. It is a hunger that has driven us to stare into fires and into telescopes, to pass down sacred stories and to build colossal particle accelerators. We are meaning-seeking creatures, and our creation stories, whatever form they take, are our primary tools in that search. Some of us are compelled to search for answers in the material world, through the rigorous and disciplined lens of science. This path demands that we peel back the layers of reality, looking for the underlying mechanisms that govern existence. It is a quest for objective truth, a story told in the universal language of mathematics and evidence. This journey takes us to the farthest reaches of space and the deepest recesses of the atom, revealing a universe of breathtaking scale and complexity. It offers the profound satisfaction of understanding, of knowing not just what is, but how it came to be. It is a story that grows and refines itself with every new discovery, a testament to human curiosity and our relentless drive to solve the great cosmic puzzle we find ourselves in. Others find their answers not in the external world, but in the internal landscape of the human spirit. For these seekers, truth is found in the myths and traditions passed down through generations, stories that have been polished smooth by the hands of time. This path is a quest for meaning, for a narrative that places our fragile lives within a larger, purposeful drama. It is a journey that reveals a world imbued with soul, where every mountain, river, and creature has a story and a sacred role to play. It provides a moral compass and a sense of belonging that pure data can never offer. This is a truth that nourishes the heart, builds community, and provides comfort and guidance in the face of life's great mysteries. Ultimately, these two great quests, the scientific and the mythic, are both profoundly human. They spring from the same deep well of wonder, the same desire to look into the darkness of the unknown and find a glimmer of light. Whether we find that light in the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, or in the timeless wisdom of a tribal elder, the search itself is what defines us. We are the universe's storytellers, the only beings we know of who can look back at the beginning and ask the question, how did it all start? And the story we choose to believe, the narrative we embrace as our own, becomes the foundation upon which we build our lives, our values, and our understanding of our place in the cosmos. So now the journey ends, and the decision rests with you. We have laid out two powerful, compelling, and largely incompatible stories of creation. There is no more evidence to present, no more arguments to make. The time for contemplation is over. The final, polarizing question hangs in the air, demanding an answer. It is a question that cuts to the very core of your identity, to the foundation of your reality. Do you choose the story of science, a narrative built on a bedrock of logic, evidence, and the relentless pursuit of verifiable fact? Or do you choose the story of myth, a narrative that offers mystery, meaning, and a universe with a soul? To choose science is to embrace a universe of unimaginable age and scale, a cosmos of stunning, impersonal grandeur. It is to accept that our Earth is a product of gravity and time, that life is a result of evolution's blind artistry, and that we are a temporary flicker of consciousness made from the ashes of long-dead stars. This path requires the intellectual courage to accept a reality that may not be comforting, to find beauty in the intricate workings of physical law, and to forge your own meaning in a universe that offers none. It is a choice for the truth of the mind, a commitment to follow the evidence wherever it may lead, even if it leads to the conclusion that we are magnificently, terrifyingly alone. To choose myth is to embrace a world that was created with purpose, a cosmos that is alive and responsive to the human spirit. It is to believe that the land beneath our feet is sacred, that our existence is part of a divine plan, and that we are members of a great interconnected family of beings. This path requires the spiritual courage to have faith, to find truth in symbolism and metaphor, and to live in a way that honors the sacredness of creation. It is a choice for the truth of the heart, a commitment to a story that provides a sense of belonging, moral guidance, and a profound connection to the world. This is the ultimate question we leave you with, the debate we now invite you to join. There can be no middle ground in this final moment of decision. Are you a child of the Big Bang, or a child of the Great Spirit? Is your origin story written in the laws of physics, or in the heart of a water beetle? Declare your allegiance, make your stand. Do you believe the earth was born from stardust, or from soul? The universe is vast and the nature of truth is a mystery. Now, it is your turn to speak. Let the debate begin.